I really appreciate you taking the time out of, I know what is a very busy schedule, for you to do this interview with me. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you relate to spiritual program or spiritual direction, what that is to you and what you do with it?
Absolutely. I'm the founding director of Meadville Lombard Theological School's spiritual direction program. So we form and certify spiritual directors. We equip them and send them out, launch them.
Awesome. And is there anything else that you would like people to know about you and um, how you came to spiritual companioning?
Gosh, how I came to spiritual direction. I never meant to be a spiritual director. I worked as an institutional minister for the Unitarian Universalist Association for 20 years. I think I hold the title for the most different titles in the institution. I've done a lot of different things there. I love change and I love everything is faith formation to me. And so I would just kind of go to where I was needed. And I noticed it was before COVID. It was a bit before COVID. I started noticing that the people in my care, the leaders in congregations, um, needed needed more. And I don't mean more resources. I mean more presence. And when somebody would cold call me, I would ask, with what kind of ears would you like me to listen? Would you like coaching, consulting, or pastoral ears? And I was trained to lead with coaching and consulting ears. So that's a lot of helping people fix or helping people remember where the answers are, to things. But more and more people were asking for pastoral uh, presence. They were asking for witness. They were asking for me to just listen as they talked about what was going on or how they were processing leadership. And that's really not so much my training. And I didn't feel confident in it. So I went to a center near me where a Benedictine center that I often go um, for retreat. And I asked Sister Lucy, who I adore, said, I need to learn how to listen. You all do that really well. How do you have a class? What do you need? And she goes, oh, there's a spiritual direction program. I'll get you in. I'm like, no, 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 no. I don't want to be a spiritual director. I just want to learn how to listen. And Sister Lucy's like, yeah, 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 whatever, just get in the program. And I do what Sister Lucy tells me to do. So it was a 2-year program. I was the only Unitarian Universalist, which honestly was kind of nice. I need a break from our people. I love our people, but it was nice to kind of be anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to do a lot of translation, which was fine. And when it came to our practicum, and I had practice people that I was being a practice spiritual director with, I loved it. And I've got some chronic illnesses that I track with an Apple Watch. So it kind of tracks like if my blood pressure goes too high or those kind of things. And I was noticing that when I was in spiritual direction with somebody, it was the same stats as if I were meditating.
Mm-hmm.
So my doctor said, whatever that is, do that.
Nice.
And so I did. I started taking on actual clients. Turns out I liked it a whole lot. And when I had clients, I noticed that they would go off and do amazing things. Now, when I worked for the UUA, it was very much a public persona. Like if I did a workshop, you knew who was in the workshop. I mean, it was all public. In spiritual direction, you don't know who anybody's clients are unless they say so. The client says so. So it was a very different kind, and I liked it a whole lot. Oh my God, I loved being anonymous. Um, there was a quietness about it. Now, because we have supervision, it wasn't that it lacked responsibility or accountability. It absolutely does. But there was a quiet, a stillness that I did not know I was craving.
Mm.
And my clients would go off and do amazing things. And that's where the three things that I describe come from: spiritual maturity, that this is that spiritual direction cultivates spiritual maturity, spiritual courage, and spiritual imagination. And so it wasn't long after that I left the UUA and pitched the idea to Meadville to start a program just for Unitarian Universalists. Although we have plenty of people who are not UU in our program because they want to get trained by the code switchers. Yeah, that's how I came to it.
Awesome. So um, it sounds like the person that got you into the original class was kind of your spiritual director, unbeknownst to you yourself.
Yeah. I had gone to Sister Lucy before when I was considering going into the ministry. I knew that the Benedictines do great things with discernment. I hadn't yet known that the Unitarian Universalists did. So I went to Sister Lucy and said, I'm getting a call to ministry. I've been asked by some folks from my tradition, which is our tradition, to go to seminary, talk me out of it. And I had a couple sessions with her and I'm like, please talk me out of it. And by the end, I went to seminary and then became a minister. And she was at my ordination, which was very sweet. And she actually she's my spiritual direction supervisor. So I have two different supervisors and then a spiritual director, which sounds like it's maybe overkill. Like I just saw my spiritual director, who it's lovely to be with her. I've been with Sarah Maldonado Salazar for almost I think it's over 15 years now. And she can call me out on stuff. She can pull me into stuff, redirect me like nobody's business. And oh my God, I love her so much. So that's who I go to just for my own time out of time to look at my life. Then I have a supervisor I go to that helps me with seeing how the divine is moving in my private practice because I still have some private clients. And I have enough that I need supervision for that. And then Sister Lucy, because she has also founded her own program and runs her own program. She's my supervisor for the Meadville Lombard program. And that's spiritual direction supervision. And then I've got a supervisor that's just like my official supervisor for the program within Meadville. That's a lot of people. I got a big squad.
That's
Yeah.
good, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's nice to have all those people with both having your back.
Yeah.
So you started off with so many different things, and I'm like, okay, I gotta remember that, and then I'm gonna remember that. So which direction do I want to go in? And I think what still is popping into my brain, the one that I didn't forget, was to ask you more about. You mentioned um, when you came into spiritual direction, and people were calling you, and they were asking for something that you weren't quite sure what what it was, is in comparison to what you were taught. And so I I I wonder, like, when people are calling in to you as a minister, what is the difference between, or how do you identify whether someone is calling in for pastoral care or for spiritual direction, um, or just a chat? I mean, how did you make that discernment?
Sure. When I would ask somebody, with what ears would you like me to listen? And I said pastoral ears. There's a difference between, I think, pastoral ears, that's like clergy um, ears, a presence, and pastoral care. So pastoral care happens within the context of a community, and spiritual direction uh, is not within a community. It stands on its own. It is usually monthly, so it's long over time. It helps people slow down and really start noticing and doing that work of noticing the divine in their lives. So pastoral care is usually has a specific topic and is within community. When I think of pastoral ears, it's the same kind of presence as a spiritual direction. It's a kind of a quality of radical listening and
Mhm.
slowing down. And I don't know if we've gotten to it this module yet in our program, but there's a picture of three chairs. Oh no, it's coming up. There's a picture of three chairs that
I
I
won't
showed
tell
you.
anybody.
Yeah, there's a picture of three chairs, and um, you, the spiritual director, are in one chair. The person or people, if it's group supervision or group spiritual direction, is in one chair, and then God is in the other chair.
The third chair.
Yeah, the third chair. The third chair is God. And so much of what I try to help people surrender to is that we don't have to be in charge. Unitarian Universalist, it breaks my heart the kind of certitude that our people have. It's connected to that anti-authoritarianism, which I think comes from a, oh, what kind of word do I want to use? I'm gonna I'm gonna say a misunderstanding of humanism because I claim myself to be a religious humanist. But they have a fundamentalism within Unitarian Universalism, and God bless the humanists. It often comes from that portion, and that especially breaks my heart because I identify as a religious, probably a religious mystic humanist, and they would probably go like, "What the heck?" Um, but that fundamental humanism misunderstands what's in the center. So rather than having humanity, communities, things that are larger than us in the center, things that's larger than us, that fundamental humanism has come to believe that the individual is in the center, like in the individual is God. And that has not served us well. It has Mm. It has grown a kind of certitude, a brittle certitude that is just unbecoming of religious community. Yeah.
I recently read a book. I'm not going to remember her name, but maybe I'll edit this and put it in there, or at least put it in the
Yeah.
comments so that people know. But she identifies as a mystic atheist, and she says just what you're saying is that um, you know religion has gotten too dogmatic, and humanism and atheism have gotten too individualistic, and so having some come together where we are just kind of built to need that spiritual community.
Yeah.
And how can you do that if everyone is spiritual but not religious? Or
Right. Right. There's that community piece, but then also like I get excited, like I want to meet this mystic
she's
atheist.
also a spiritual director, and I'm going to try and get her to do an interview
Oh
with
yeah, yeah, yeah. Please. Oh, and I'll find out who it is and I want to be your friend. Um, because like Carl Sagan is one of like my ancestors. I love Carl. I almost named our youngest Sagan, although he's named Kepler after another mystic, scientist, religious person. But Carl Sagan was a scientist who was so tapped into the wonder of it and never lost for a second that there's something larger and bigger that our human minds are not equipped to comprehend, and science hasn't caught up yet. So there's a humility that uh, I wish the world had more of.
what do you think needs to happen? This is a little, maybe a little more direct than I intend, but what do you think needs to happen to get our religion on board with needing that, wanting that spiritual growth that oftentimes seems to be kind of absent in some of our services and some of our just activities. I mean, we have great focus on social justice and all of that stuff, and yet oftentimes it seems like the inner work is a little missing. Maybe you disagree, but what do you
No,
think?
I absolutely agree. Um, there are some congregations that have it in spades, and they're growing. Uh, we still have growth in the movement, and they're the ones that are spiritually mature, spiritually imaginative, and spiritually courageous. Um, part of I'm an institutionalist to the core, and so starting the program at Meadville to train more spiritual directors is my love letter to our tradition. I am trying to make way and cast a vision where spiritual directors can do more work with the leaders within a congregation. A lot of ministers already have it in uh, their professional line item, their what's that called? Their professional expenses, uh, and regularly see spiritual directors. More and more religious educators are seeing spiritual directors. More and more religious educators are becoming spiritual directors. Or spiritual director, which makes me so happy. Uh, and I would like to cast the vision that more presidents of congregations see spiritual directors paid for by the congregation. And there's been models where congregations hire spiritual directors to accompany their board of directors. So they're at board meetings, they help the board get focused on what their mission is. And I don't mean in a technical way, but in a religious way, and ask, what is it for us to do? Will stop, slow things down when things either get heated or they get too fast. To slow things down and remind people that everything that we do is faith formation. The church clock is different than the Chronos out there clock. It's a different culture, and we often think of we often misappropriate the secular culture and try to bring it in, or secular tools and try to bring it into church, and it doesn't always translate. It usually doesn't translate. So like it's, covenant, I think of covenant. So a spiritual director can help a congregation really remind them and help them bring them back to their covenant. And I don't mean in a mediating or a conflict engagement way, but in a gentle presence, slow down, remember way.
Yeah, so that kind of
I don't even know if they make sense.
no, it totally did, and it made me think of a couple of things. One of which is knowing what you know now. When when you had those people calling in to you and asking, and you were asking them, what kind of ears do you want me to listen with? And knowing that you at that point were not really trained as a spiritual director, would you have referred them to one?
Oh gosh. Yeah. Yes. Oh my goodness. Um, after I became trained, um, a couple denominations that will remain nameless for a reason you'll understand soon, had a couple denominations in my area had congregations that had sexual misconduct. And then that minister went away and they had a new minister come in. And some of the laity that were in charge at that time were clearly traumatized. And they asked me, because I know some things about that, asked me if I would companion them in spiritual direction.
Yeah,
And so I did. And I kept thinking, I wish our denomination would proactively, wouldn't it be nice if they proactively paid for? And somehow, well, I'm going to put a plug here. Wouldn't it be great if whatever funds the fellowship, the MFC, would put in some money for when things go sideways to support lay members, lay leaders in getting that leadership support. I did a study back in, oh gosh, so this would have been 15 years ago, when I was a name growth strategist. I was curious. I like numbers because they help me break down assumptions. And I was curious as to, people kept saying that we had more people outside of our congregations than inside the congregation. And I forget what the exact numbers were, but like the census had this ginormous number of people who said that they were Unitarian Universalists. And that did not match at all the number that we have on our books as members, right? And I'm like, where did these people, who are these people? So I threw out it was a clumsy survey, but it was a survey nonetheless, of out on social media asking who are all these people. And some of the questions asked, have you ever been in a congregation? And if so, were you ever in leadership? And why did you leave? Were kind of the questions. And then at the end, I made the mistake, I don't know, of saying if you want somebody to touch base with you about this, or if you have questions, put your name here. I was not prepared for the landslide of people who said, yes, I want to talk about this.
Oh, wow.
Most of them had been in congregations before, and they were in leadership positions and had been shamed, or there was big conflict, or they made a mistake and didn't know how to come back from it. And I just kept thinking, we have got to do better. And I think that's also a place where spiritual direction can help people figure out ways back in. Not so much as a coach, but to hold up a holy mirror and help them do their work.
Yeah.
You can edit that whole thing out. That was a whole like side rabbit hole. I don't know what that was.
No, it was useful, and I think that um, I mean, because you and I shared the same religion, we have that in common, that we have similar experiences with the religion, and how it interacts with spiritual directors, and how it interacts with lay leaders who are often put in a position of being a spiritual director having absolutely no idea how to do that, especially when we're talking about fellowships that don't have a minister. They have these leaders who are leading people in a spiritual path, and yet, um, for all we say we don't like dogma, in some situations, having some kind of education or knowledge or skills related to what you're doing, especially when you're talking about spiritual direction, and even more so when you're talking about spiritual direction with someone who has had trauma, that now I don't know exactly what I'm trying to get at, but I feel like that's kind of like maybe my kind of pet peeve, is that we often have, in my experience with churches, that there are often lay leaders who really just are not educated in what they're doing.
Well, and there's different lanes of spiritual care as well, right? And it behooves the person who is the caregiver to understand what lane they're in. So when those denominations called me and said, hey, would you accompany these folks? I called it spiritual direction because it was over a period of a year, and we like slowed it down. The initial care was very much more chaplain care, so acute. So I think of chaplain care as it being very acute, a lot of regulating, getting somebody back to grounding. And then you have the kind of pastoral care within a community that is, I'd say, in spurts, and usually has to do with somebody who's in transition, of some sort, or who has big questions of some sort and needs some special care. It's hard to be, I've not seen a model within the Unitarian Universalist of having an in-house spiritual director, because um, I could I could see what we call often chalice circles or small group ministry, a spiritual director coming in and adding some deeper presence to those, but that's still group and volunteer. A spiritual director, because we usually see people individually over time, there's not enough time in a day for a spiritual director to see everybody within that congregation, even if it's a fellowship. And so you're going to have somebody left out and wondering, how come they don't have time for me?
Mm.
So that's hard. Now, some people take the spiritual direction training, like I did, just to get more training on how to listen better, how to be more present, how to have, your toolbox full of spiritual tools. It has certainly made me a better mother, a better parent. If I never became a spiritual director, I would be still very grateful for the training. So, should you get training if you were specifically within a congregation? I would say yes, it's still worth it. But I'm not a fan of, at least Unitarian Universalists, having an in-house spiritual director.
Well,
That
I'm glad I asked the question because, yeah, that makes a lot of sense as to um, then there would be situations where people might feel like, well, why don't I get it?
exactly.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I thought of while you were talking was it also kind of makes it so that the person doesn't have to try as hard to find a spiritual director, which I think um, having had to kind of look for a spiritual director and find one that worked right for me and stuff was kind of my way of investing in what I
Yeah.
was doing, and I was more
Yes.
invested and more had more buy-in because I had to do that instead of someone just saying, "Oh, here you go, talk to this person."
Yeah. It's I'd say it's like all part of the formation. It's all part of the process. That I hadn't thought of that. That's good. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you can think of that you feel like you really want to share with people about spiritual direction or about your school and what you're doing with that?
Hmm. I've got some values that I thought if I get to ever do a program, uh I so I was a teacher by training. And I think by vocation, I'm a religious educator to my core. And my hobby is to design programs and curriculum and research. I have journals upon journals where I'm just design things because you never know when it might happen. And
Mm.
also it's just fun to do. So when Elias Ortega, the president of Meadville, he asked me at one point, he's like, "What do you see on the horizon?" Because he knows I kind of watch for those things. I watch for trends on the horizon. And he said, "Elias, I don't think, I know it's spiritual direction." And he's like, "Oh, tell me more." So I told him, and he's like, "We should get a program. We'll get a committee going so that they can design something." And I'm like, "Well," and I pulled it out of my bag. Like, I already have it. Here's the curriculum. Here's the layout, the scope and sequence, and the why, and the thinking, and some of the things that were like really important. I'm like, if I ever get to do this, liberation, hospitality, and sustainability are going to be the core values, right? I want it to be online so that anybody, anywhere can apply and be a part of it. The application process itself is developmental. So applicants have a virtual tea with me beforehand, and I ask them the question, tell me about how spiritual direction has impacted your life. Now, if it hasn't, this isn't the program for you. If you don't still know what it is, it's probably not the program for you. I wanted people who were going to hit the ground running, who their community already saw a spiritual director in them. And so the application process is already developmental. They're the questions that were going to accompany you your entire first year. So that's it from the get-go. The other thing I wanted to do, just because it's fun, is have care packages come at the beginning of every term. So it's stuff like that that I'm like, if I could do anything, what would I do? And I got to do it, and I feel really blessed, really, really blessed by that. My goal is that we will have 150 uh, spiritual directors by 10 years, and we're way ahead of schedule. So I hope the trend continues.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And though I'm originally doing this interview for a different program, I am in that program as well and having a great time already. And the care package was pretty awesome.
You know what I say about the other I am so happy that we've got these other programs. And I send people to Cherry Hill all the time. I think Cherry Hill is just a fantastic program. And there's some others out there that are, it's a big ecosystem. And we need all of those programs because there's all different kinds of people out there. So I hope that all of the programs help bring out the authentic, as Sister Lucy says, it brings out the way God made you, that you better understand the way God made you and you show up authentically as that spiritual director, because there are people who need you in the way that you are as a spiritual director. Yeah, it's a big, big ecosystem and a big need in today's world.
Yeah. So tell me again, liberation, hospitality, and what was the third one?
Sustainability.
Sustainability.
Yeah, and I mean that in both, like, because it's virtual, we don't have a big carbon footprint. I also want it to be sustainable, that it fits in people's lives. So sometimes you'll see, unless we're doing something very tender and intimate, you might see people's family members around in the background or handing somebody dinner while they're, in class and those kind of things. I want it to really fit in people's lives and really complement it.
Yeah. And it has felt comfortable to do that. And the only way I could have possibly been doing both programs
Right?
at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have given me some wonderful stuff. I really appreciate it. I have a speed round for you.
Okay.
So just one or two words to respond to what I say. All right.
Okay.
Divine is.
Oh, my beloved.
God is.
Mm, everywhere.
Spiritual direction is.
Presence and enough.
My favorite book is.
The Little Prince by Saint-Exupéry.
My favorite dessert is.
Oh gosh. Ah, whatever put in front of me. I like surprises too, so that's double yay.
Well, that's pretty awesome. I'm mostly a salty person myself, but um, thank you so much, Tandi Rogers, for being here and sharing yourself and your huge knowledge and love of spiritual direction. It is always a pleasure and a joy to get to spend some time with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lisa. I love that we are connected in multiple ways. I don't take that for granted. That's very precious to me. Thank you.
Thank you.